My mental health history started right when I was born.
Jenny started showing some problems that I didn't really understand what they were.
I have major depression and general anxiety and seasonal affective disorder.
I have depression. I am a recovering alcoholic.
I have chronic and severe PTSD, suicide ideation, and alcoholism.
Jenny was diagnosed with depression and anxiety, and she was alcohol dependent.
And it's been a struggle most of my life. My road to wellness costs over $1 million.
Medication hasn't always been helpful for me. Therapy hasn't always been helpful to me.
If you're not somebody who necessarily struggles with mental illness, it's easy to wonder why we don't just reach out for help.
Where do I get help? Well, let's try this and let's try that.
We don't know everybody's internal battles, and we need to give them the grace that they're trying to figure it out.
We've both gotten through things before, and we'll keep getting through them.
I realize that I have to move on with my own life no matter what.
I know I've gotten better at navigating each one. And at the next crisis, yes, I can get better at this.
Yes.
There was always hope. I don't ever think I felt hopeless. We have to keep hope alive.
Thank you for coming to this panel discussion, which I'm pretty impressed with myself, not because I'm facilitating it, but because of the courage and strength it takes for these three people to sit in front of others and tell their story. So, as you know, May is Mental Health Awareness Month. And this church is, I almost said celebrating it. I'm not sure that's quite the right word, but certainly acknowledging what's going on, maybe in some senses the elephant in the room. You know, statistics say that in America, 51% of the population will have some sort of mental health issue in their lifetime, either temporary or permanent. And then if we think about those that are affected by mental illness, not just those who have lived it out directly, but you think of family and friends, that's an enormous number of people of us that have lived with, have struggled with, have gnashed our teeth with as an issue. And so maybe before I begin, I was just going to ask one question. So I want to bring us together as a group, and then we'll go to the panel discussion, because our goal is to empower all of us to be able to talk about mental illness, our own or those that we know, and do it in a place of safety and security. And that should be in the church. But I have two family members, two different families that struggle with mental illness, one with a child, one with a husband, and the most unsafe place for them has been in the church. And I just find that appalling and kind of brings me to tears, because I know these families so well, and them trying to protect themselves and their family members and thinking they have to do that within a church body. The local body is just uncanny or just terribly sad. So the people here that I'm looking at, how many of you have either struggled with mental illness yourself or with a close family member or friend? Just raise your hands. So if you look around, that's all of us, which sort of seems to match the statistics. So the people that are here on the panel discussion, they're not them, they're us. And I think that's a great place to start. So thank you all three for being here and being willing to talk about yourselves and your lives in a way that most of us would not choose to do. Our first question for the three of you, and you can answer it in any order that you want. As you become more open talking about your mental health issues or struggles with yourself or others in your life, how have you been received by others? So it's not whether you have mental illness or not, but talking about your stories. What kind of reception have you gotten?
I can start.
I've definitely been honest about it since I was diagnosed at 19, so over 20 years of trying to destigmatize, and I've definitely received mixed results. I think they've gotten progressively kinder and more accepting as our culture is just becoming more aware of it, and therapy is becoming more normalized, and people are just becoming aware that this is a real thing, and it's not necessarily, I don't know, all the stereotypes that you kind of initially imagine. But yeah, there's some people who are really warm and understanding, and some have been a little more, makes them nervous because they don't quite get it. But they also learn and grow and learn to see that there are depths to people, and that this is just a facet of our wiring that we work with, and we are so much more than just that.
Thank you. And I have to say that just being here with Cindy and Kathleen and Carly is a profound moment for me. But my experience has been almost universally positive. I was just very fortunate when my daughter began to manifest problems. My sisters both were there to talk with throughout that period of time. My wife and I had powerful exchanges. I had my best friend in Minneapolis when I moved here in 1971 is Betty Olson. She was a marvelous counselor for me. My best friend from childhood was a family therapist. I was on the phone to him all the time. But probably the time I felt the most at home and talking about it was right in this room. And some 20 years ago or so, I was asked to speak to Sacred Journey about Jenny, and it started a conversation that was so welcoming for me. So I have benefited from those conversations.
Well, I've shared my story for over a number of years. I used to work with Project Overcome and talk about mental health issues for years, and what I find is most of the time I am shunned. People have looks of disgust on their face. They don't know what to say. They just make excuses, back up, and run. And I'm okay with that. So everybody has a different roots, and when they ask for like more details, they think they want to hear, and then they have the look of disgust, and then I'm shunned, and then they walk away, and then they avoid me.
Well, keep the microphone, if you will. I'm going to ask a question that's not on here, but you've already...
Deviating?
Yes.
God, take a note.
What is some of the worst advice or comments that you've gotten from not just the public in general, but from your family and friends as they were interacting with you about your mental illness?
The worst things?
Yeah.
The platitudes.
That's the things you can say out loud.
Oh, I'm sorry that happened to you. Or you're very brave that you talk about it. Oh, your poor husband. What did your kid think about you? How terrible for your kid to grow up with a mother like you.
Bill, you want to take that question?
No, I'll just pass it to Carly.
I think it's okay. I mean, it depends on your headspace in the receiving of those, I think, sometimes, because I can appreciate when people can empathize with, oh, that's been really hard. But I think their tone matters a lot, and their presence, because I think it can be very platitude. But I do think there are people who, like, they want to hear it, and they respect that there's that bravery there, and they don't really know. Because, like, culturally, we don't educate people on how to interact. Yeah. And so I think it's a balance of how it can be perceived.
I do want to say that most of my friends are broken, and we have that connection so we can love and support ourselves through that because we get each other. And people who haven't had similar or experiences, they just don't know what, they can't, it's difficult to connect. And I'm okay because part of it's tone and part of it's could be my reception, but this is historical for me. So I accept that's where people are at, and some people can't do anymore. And everybody has limitations. That's why we're human, limitations.
So do you think you are separate from other people, that you stand apart rather than being embraced as part of a church or part of a family? You're always on the outside looking in, or they're looking at you?
Yes, and I've had that experience my whole life. And for me, I can go to the state fair till a certain point, and I'd realize that none of those people care about me. They just go on their lives. But if it's people I know, that's when I feel the least safe. And I have really good support and real good friends, close friends, limited friends, because that's what I can do. I have, like, my dance card is full, and I can only, the care and feeding, you can only have so many plants before something gets neglected. So I appreciate, and I want to say that my husband and I just had our anniversary, and he has 25. And there were a lot of disappointed people because they didn't think it would last. But he has been just a stalwart. It's still difficult for him when he just, I know it bothers him because he wants to fix things, but he's just been a stalwart and steadfast. And the one thing he has mastered is loving me through things. Even when other people think I'm not worth it, he just stands in there. That and my son and our fabulous daughter-in-law, I made a comment yesterday about my granddaughter inheriting my huge rock collection, and right away my daughter-in-law says, "Oh, not for a long, long time." So I just think it's strange, but one of the things I really had to learn, even if it's small parts, is because we're here to learn to love and be loved and redemption. And most of us can do one or the other, but I've had to learn to be loved. And I have been really sick with a lot of physical struggles in the last 6 years. That's God's crazy sense of humor. We're going to strike you down, so now people have to take care of you. And I've had to learn that it was okay.
Has it been hard for your own self-image? I guess, Bill, this would not be so much for you, but for Carly and for you, how you see yourself? Has it been hard to love yourself or to think of yourselves as broken, different than others?
I think a lot of mental health challenges probably spring up from whatever situations cause you to innately think that you're unlovable or that you're not worthy of love or that you're not. And I think that comes from a lot of different places in different people and circumstances or interactions. But yeah, I know that's a huge thing that I have struggled with, is a sense of being worthy of love. And therapy is great, and having healthy connections with people that you can trust and be open with, like, really nourishes that. And I've definitely found, especially in like partnering with a person who also has mental health issues, like, I love him so much. Like, obviously, he's wonderful and has all of these things to offer. And so then how do I not reflect that back on me? Like, okay, well, if he has mental health and is worthy of love, and I super love him, I have mental health issues and I am worthy of love. And so it's just kind of working on that reframing and tweaking. But I think that that's a common underlying element for people who struggle with this.
I grew up in a family that let me know every day that they wished I was dead. But hey, it almost happened, and my mother was mad she missed. But that's comedy. Anyway, I still struggle with that because I keep asking my husband, "When are you leaving?" And he just sighs and goes, "Wherever would I go?" So and he shows me every day. He still holds my hand in public. But in myself, I'm thinking I'm just such a loser and fat and ugly, and there's nothing you can do to change that. I be the best person I can. And I used to be more concerned about it when I was a lot younger. But now that I'm older, I don't care what people think or say anymore, because that's a reflection on them, not me. If you say something negative to me, that tells me all about you. And I just have to learn to adapt to what I can and cannot do. And just because people apologize or want to be part of your life doesn't mean it fits. If you have a pair of shoes that don't fit, you don't keep them. Well, people, if they don't fit, don't keep them. They can have their own lives without being in your circle. And I've had a lot to sort through in these last few months and family-wise, and coming to some really difficult decisions and feeling supported by it.
I appreciate your answers. As I had mentioned earlier, that I have two family members, or two different families in my extended family in the church, that feel a sense of shame or fear about expressing their struggles, particularly when it's chronic and persistent mental illness. So it's never going to get better. It's going to go up and down, but it'll never go away. And so what I've discovered in my work, and what I'm hearing particularly from you, and maybe from you as well, Carly, is the idea that as a therapist, one of the goals of therapy is not only to deal with the issue and help people become stronger and more capable of taking care of themselves, but dealing with their image, their sense of shame. There's something wrong with me. And somebody, I think it was, maybe it was you, Bill, I'm not sure, but somebody had mentioned to me earlier today this idea of, it was you, Carly, where you were talking about you have mental illness or form of mental illness, but that's not who you are. It's one piece of your identity. And that's part of the work with therapy, is getting people to see they are not their worst side or their worst element. There's so much more to them, so that they can love themselves and even find some sense of peace with the life that they've been given.
Just to your point on that, I have found it's taken a very intentional act of adjusting self-talk, because there are these voices that come from people who were not kind in your formative years that do lie to you and trick you into thinking that you aren't as of value as you are. And so it's taken years to kind of, like, it's kind of silly, but like, even now, like, there's just times throughout the day that I just say, like, Carly, you're doing really well and I love you. And I know that seems so like, but there's something about changing the voice in your head to be an intentionally kind message to yourself. It wears down, even if it feels, it wears into you and you start to believe it, even if it feels kind of cheesy. But yeah, being in tune with that mental voice is, taking work.
So what have been some of the best pieces of advice or support that you've been given from family and friends? So I don't want to talk about therapy so much here, but those that, as you put it, Kathleen, those few that you keep close, those pairs of shoes that still fit. What have they given you, said to you, done for you that made you feel lifted up, seen, not only seen and heard, but understood and accepted? What have you guys gotten?
You speak to that. Well, I'd say, first of all, if Jenny were here right now, she'd resonate with what you just said. I think the people who knew me best through this long, long story would sit with me and let me rant, because when it first emerged, I was in my 50s, and I have always been able to navigate any situation I'd face, and I couldn't get through this, and I just had to rant. And so they would let me do that. I was asked great questions that I hadn't thought of. I'm sorry. And I think that was very helpful to me, to just help me think, what's the next best step I can take? So that was most helpful. And I'd say the best piece of advice I ever got, and I acted on it finally, was after years people said, you've got to take care of yourself if you're going to be strong for Jenny. And finally, I did that. I went out and found a counselor for myself, and that was Dr. Olson. I started seeing her a few years before Jenny passed away. I still see her. I just talked to her last week. That was the best advice I ever got.
I don't know if I think the best advice I got is I saw a therapist a number of years ago, and she snapped and yelled at me. She said, you are your own worst enemy. And that was one of the things that got me to start looking. It's like I have to quit fighting myself. And the other thing I've noticed with my friends is when I get off the phones with them, almost every time, most of them will say, I love you. And that's just really kind of strange to have friends say that.
What does that mean when a friend says to you, I love you? What message do you get from that?
They got to find a better friend than me.
Well, I say that too, but
I know our son and daughter all look to my husband's and my marriage as an inspiration for them. I said, honey, you got to aim higher. But anyway, no, it's like they see things in me that I don't see. And sometimes that's a challenge. And I find the older I get, the more that I embrace solitude. Like take a week off from everybody, just about everybody, except cooking. The worst 3 words, what's for dinner?
but when someone says I love you, I just want to come back to that for a second, Kathleen. The message you get from that, could it be I'm good enough? I don't have to be perfect, but someone sees me as I am and they appreciate that. I don't have to be something more or something else.
Well, I feel like my friends can meet me where I'm at. And that's the best place because we're never on an even keel. And I found a way of life is that you ride the wave. When one person falls down, when the other person comes to help you up, you have an obligation not only for the person to come and help you up, but the obligation for the person that's down to get up. You have to have a teamwork, whether it be a friend or a partner or somebody that cares enough about you. And we have our part to do. I would rather shrivel up and fade away like a ghost. But, you know, they use my granddaughter to keep me here because there's days I'm too tired, I'm too weary from the fight to keep going. But, you know, when you got 4 of them rallying around you to keep you going, because just because I carry the pain every day doesn't mean that they want to have the pain of losing me. So we have to make a choice of like, do I create pain for them to relieve my pain, or do I just suck it up to carry my pain so they don't have to go through the pain? It's, you know, some days are better than other days.
Carly?
One thing I found really helpful, so if you're somebody who struggles with mental health, it's hard to ask for help for a number of reasons, usually because you feel burdensome to people that you love. What I have found, like my partner and I have this thing where it's, you know, like, oh, hey, you're not feeling well. Should I come by? Should I come by and see how you're doing? And then the person in it is usually like, no, I'm fine, because you want to isolate, you want to be alone, you want to fade into nothing, so you're not bothering any of the people you love. And then he says, or I say like, hey, I'd really like to come over. I'd really like to spend time with you. It's fine that you're feeling how you're feeling. You don't have to be anything you're not right now. I would just like to be in your company so you're not alone. Is that okay? And framing it in that way where this is what I would like to do. If it's okay with you, you can say no, you have agency. You might just feel like being alone, and that is allowed. But anytime he's done that, I'm like, yes, please, thank you. Like, oh, yay, I'm having to deal with me, and I'm the worst right now. So like, if there's somebody else that can bring some kindness, I'll take it. But I've just found that framing of it, because just saying like, oh, do you want me to come over? No, I'm not going to take it. So that's a thing that I found effective. And yeah.
I think that's really good, what you've said. I think it is difficult to ask for help. It's difficult in our culture. I'm not sure, I can't speak as a woman, but I've certainly talked to enough. Married to one, have 2 daughters. I have a mom who tells me plenty. But I think in our culture, it is hard to say, I don't know what I want, or I don't know what I need. And most of the time, most of us, and in my field, what I find from clients and others that I talk to, is they don't want advice per se, or they don't want people to tell them what they should be thinking or feeling or even doing. The best question I ever heard in regard to this area was, where are you right now? Tell me how you're thinking and how you're feeling. And then the second part of the question is, what do you want from me right now? What would you like? Do you want to just vent? And I'll just sit here and listen, because I can handle that. It's not about me. So you can get angry if you want. Or are you looking for advice, or would you like me to come over, which not as good for you. But it's giving a sense of power back to people and saying, we're here for you, we love you, we care for you, but what was it that you would like from us?
The other thing I think is really important to consider, if you're offering to help, please show up. That's huge, because reason we don't ask for help is people have offered to help and then they ghost, or they don't show up because something better came along, or they didn't feel like it, or it doesn't matter to the person you promised to it. So that's why half the time I don't think we ask, is because we're not sure that people are going to show up for us.
I heard something similar but differently, Kathleen, about that. A couple of people had said to me over the years, I don't ask specific people for a lot of help because I don't want to burn them out. So I try and have a kind of a team or a group of people around me so that I can vent and then give you a chance to relax and do whatever, and then I'll vent with Bill or I'll vent with Kathleen. But I think for those that struggle with chronic illness, whether it's mental illness or physical illness, there's really a fear that we're going to burn out our team or our support system. Do you guys struggle with that at all?
I mean, that's certainly been an issue for me. Just as life has evolved, I've sort of, I was divorced a decade ago and lost kind of a social circle. So there's been kind of situations where job change or life change has kind of limited my social circle to begin with. And so then the limited people you have, you feel extra weary of being too much. But I think that that's why, if you can have a couple of those really good friends, a partner or some other people, and then also professionals, have a therapist, I'm a strong advocate for using the tools that are available, however, and they're not all gonna fit all the time, but you really it's a wave. I think that really, there's times where things are helping and working well, and there's times that they're not, and you just have to remember it'll come out, because it does. You come out of it, but when you're in it, you just don't feel that.
The other thing I'd add is, don't decide what you think is best for us. Just ask us. Don't make decisions for us. If I am brave enough to ask for something, then it's on you to say yes or no. No is a complete sentence. It's okay. I'd rather have someone tell me no than that they can't, than say yes and not show up, because that really messes with our minds, and then we begin not to trust you, and you'll find us spiraling and spinning quietly further and further away from you, because how can we trust you if your words don't have any weight? So, and ask, let us decide, and we can ask, and then you can decide, but be honest about it.
Bill, what about you? Telling your story, did you worry about?
One comment I could make on this subject is, I can speak for Jenny, because there was a time when she just said what both of you said. I was reading a book written by George McGovern called Terry, about his daughter. And Jenny came into my office, saw that, and took it, and she read it, and she wanted to talk to me about it. I brought that copy of it with me today, because in the front of the book she wrote, "He still doesn't understand." And she was mad at him as the father of this daughter, because he didn't understand. And she could read the book and she could understand Terry. So I never forgot that. And it helped me in conversations with Jenny because I didn't understand what she was dealing with. I struggled to find the words, and she struggled to talk to me, but that was a hard bridge to cross.
Did you worry, Bill, about burning out your friends or your support system when you were going through this with Jenny and
Not at
after
all.
she passed?
No, I just have such a strong, I still do, strong support system, so I've not faced that.
Well, the final question that I'll ask, and then I'll open it up to the group here for any questions you might have of our panelists. And this question is, how has your faith impacted your mental illness? How has your mental illness impacted your faith? Where has God been in this journey of yours? How do you make sense of that?
It changed when I started thinking more about the Noah story. Ironically, that's the name of my granddaughter, so look out, world. When they said that God put a rainbow in the sky, he made a promise, and I realized God was, in his own way, trying to control people's behavior so they behave civilized and better. And I realized that after the flood and changes, he gave up control over people and let people have free will. So whenever what I was going through at home, people would tell me, well, God must have ordered that for you or ordained that for you. It's God's will. And I'm thinking, no, because people have free will. Humans decide to do what they want to do to other humans. It's not God that says that to happen to you as punishment. Because we still look at God, some people, as a punishing God, and that smite you. And really, I think it's free will. People make choices to hurt people, to love people, to beat people up, to do awful things to people, to behave terribly. Free will. And it's not a God-given right, it's just free will. And once I realized that God was actually for me and he cried every time that I cried, and it wasn't me being evil, it was the humans around me. And that made a difference to realize that healing that spiritual part of my life was a big step on addressing the other things.
So you felt like God saw you through that, was with you, and he cried as you cried.
Yep, and I also began to see, because another old friend had talked about this, that every time I was going through something awful, the angels were surrounding me, and the angels were taking as many blows for me as they could. I can't imagine how much worse it would have been if they weren't there surrounding me, helping me. And the only one that kept me alive and still keeps me alive today is St. Michael. And I think he's getting tired out, running to my rescue. But you realize that this is not a do-it-yourself job here on earth. We all depend on somebody to some degree to help us through. And really, if you look at your life and all the different stops and intersections, there has somebody that has shown up for you. You don't know if it's human or angelic, but they have shown you how to walk with you to get to the next steps. There's always somebody planted to help you get there, but sometimes we just don't pay attention to that. And that has been a huge thing for me to see that I have been helped to survive.
Bill, Carly, where has your faith been? Have you questioned God in this or wondered where he was, she was?
Yeah, I often ask that question, where is God in this story? And I would go with what you just said, because I'm looking back now over 20-some years, and I didn't necessarily see it at the time, but I do now, and that God was in the story with me and Jenny every step of the way. And it started with, I was teaching Sunday school here with her, and then she worked with me on teaching those classes. I followed her through confirmation and her relationship with Peter Belke, who had an impact on her. And now I look back and say, well, that was extraordinary. I was here in Sacred Journey, I've talked about that. And that was over a long period of time very helpful to me. we formed a little group coming out of Sacred Journey called Let Your Life Speak that Sally Johnson helped us put together. And there I had that strength. So I have had God in my life. I just didn't see it as clear as I can see it now.
I think my approach is a little different. I've had my own issues of religious trauma and rejection and that kind of a thing, which kind of led me to not particularly identify with God necessarily, where I found the whole meaning of existence for me is love, and how do we put love into the world. And I think ultimately when God speaks to people, it's because it's that manifestation of love that really that they can identify with more than just I can based on my own experiences. I think there's a lot of value to that, and I think especially it can nurture you in beautiful ways. But approaching it more as like a universal approach, I find just kind of, how do I ground in kindness? How do I, I'm not always peak, but how do I help others when I can? How do I put good into the world? How do I uplift others? And, and I think we're all serving the same thing. It just has different names and different, personifications or ideologies with it. So yeah, I find, like being in nature, or when you like have those really good connections with people, it's like, oh, we've had this amazing conversation. Look, we're both people. And it's, like when you touch your humanity, your mutual humanity like that. I think artistic expression are also ways that you touch into your humanity, and it reminds you that you're part of something bigger than you in whatever ways, can kind of feed you.
Thank you.
Any questions from the audience?
Yes.
Yes,
Do
ma'am.
you use any resources like NAMI, for instance? How about just that one?
Do you guys use resources like NAMI?
I've listed the resources, and they're right in the table back there, but it's NAMI, Alcoholics Anonymous. The most powerful resource in Jenny's life was Vale Place. And then the best book I ever read as a resource was written by Sonia Waters, and I've given the title of that as well. It's a magnificent book.
I was on the board of NAMI for a while, quite a while. And I've been to AA, but the biggest help I think I got that I learned the most from is Al-Anon. I think everybody can use Al-Anon. So
Can you just say something about Al-Anon for people that might not be familiar with it? Why do you think it would be helpful for everyone?
Well, because we, codependency, and I learned a long time ago, for me, I set the boundary of if I feel sorry for you, I'm not going to help you, because that means I'm enabling you. And I'm not going to do that because it's not good for either of us. I can offer options of support or where to go, but I'm not going to enable you. And sometimes we get caught up in that sick, kind of twisted relationship, and it's not good for anybody, because that helps you stay on the hamster wheel of being stuck in blame, and then the shame, and then the guilt, and it starts over again. And then the person, it can create hostile dependency. Who's heard of that word before, hostile dependency? You ask for help, you get the help, then you're mad at the person who gave you the help because they thought that you didn't think that they were capable of doing it. So the retribution, I just have to stay out of that, because it's a no-win situation. And it's not good for my health. And anything that stirs up my PTSD, I'm walking away from you, because, or anybody that tries to make me feel small, I will walk away.
Carly, did you find any resources helpful on your journey?
I mean, mainly like therapy, but even that, like, it can be tricky to find a therapist that works with you, yeah. But I've had a few really good ones. I even think in the church here, like our congregational care team that did this panel, like, you can reach out to them and they're happy to offer resources as well. I think we're all very strong advocates for destigmatization and resources and normalizing this, but I don't have any particular resources to recommend.
Therapy has come up several times in this discussion, despite my desire to avoid talking about it. Maybe it would be helpful for the audience to have each of you say just a couple of things about how do you find a therapist? How do you find a therapist that's good? Because if all of us have struggled with mental illness, or we have friends and family that have, and so we want to help ourselves or help them, how do you find one?
So sometimes recommendations help. So if you have somebody that you know of who's in that scene, they can kind of direct you to maybe people that would be comparable. So I've had good luck with that. I also think if you know types of therapy, like there's dialectical, behavioral, yes, behavioral therapy, and like there's a number of different approaches. So if you're kind of aware of what approaches might work for you. Also, I think there's certain things where, like, if somebody is working in a queer-friendly space, then I'm like, oh, okay, our values are probably aligned. So there's things like that too that are kind of indicators as to whether you might get along, but you just kind of gotta try it out, and it can be messy and uncomfortable, but it's worth it. It's worth it for the game.
In my case for finding a therapist, I had a very good friend whose name I mentioned earlier, Betty Olson, who knew therapists all around town. She was a marvelous resource for me. She's kind of like a mental health navigator. She could point me in the right direction. That was helpful. But in the case of the therapist I did ultimately find, I spoke to Jenny's therapist. He was having such an impact on her. I said, who do you recommend for me? And that's how I got to Dr. Olson.
I've had a variety of therapists, some good, some voyeurs, some not. And I did prolonged exposure for a while, and she was very good because she was empathetic. And there's sometimes in family dynamics, you're sentenced to silence, and it's important to find a place so that you can actually say what really happened without feeling shamed or judged. And if you can't talk about those things, and we also, some of us that grew up with the other motto, comply or die. And so we have to find a place that we can feel safe to talk about these things. And if there's a specialty and the person you're seeing doesn't have that specialty, like sexual abuse, then find someone who is skilled in that area, because otherwise you may find yourself worse off with more damage. Because people want to try to fix things, and some people, I'm not calling an electrician to fix a plumbing problem. So we just have to be kind and somebody that allows you to just unfold and just slowly let things out, because we're really watch facial tells. So when people go, then we know we're going to shut up and not say anything. Or, and I know it's uncomfortable, but then like you said, what can I help you with? Or you can just be honest. I'm so uncomfortable, it totally disgusts me, I can't. Bye. I mean, just be honest, because we have been deceived and dismissed for so long. We'd rather have the honesty than somebody trying to make you look better to us. So I would rather have the honesty, and if you can't, you can't. We all have limitations.
I would like to take a moment to just thank them directly, because this is incredibly hard.
I also want to underscore two things. One is Kathleen talked about pity, and in Buddhism, pity is the near enemy of compassion. And I think woven throughout this is no one wants to be pitied. Everyone wants to be seen as competent and capable, and that's what we're trying to give each other, whatever our struggles or our limitations. I also Bill mentioned Vale Communities. There have been 3 of them. One is in Hopkins, one is in Uptown, and one in St. Paul. And just recently, because of funding issues, they are closing 2 of the 3. And I think we have to, in this moment, underscore that mental health services are really being challenged. And so anything that you can do to help advocate. And one very real thing that you can do is walk with us for the NAMI Walk in September. And Lori, who is back here, is spearheading our group. She will sign you up, and we're gonna go and advocate in that way. Thank you, Dan. Thank you, Carly and Bill and Kathleen, and thank you all for being here today.